Well, good evening. Good evening. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. We've got a very special show tonight. I don't have many guests on other than our usual Dom Primetime Treasure Hunter. I've got two guests on here, the real deal, no fluff, kind of along the lines of the type of people that I know locally here. Two guys from CA, Mike and Orlando. We're going to bring them on in just a second here. I just wanted to give just a couple quick updates before we roll right into today's content. For those in Patreon, video just posted. I've got a live show post going to be posted for tomorrow. That's going to be on a Sunday live show for everybody in Patreon. I'll give you an update. I had the visit and all that. We'll talk about that there. Got some other topics. We've got a store review, and I've got a video coming up for some toys that someone has posted some images for. New content will be up here on YouTube first thing tomorrow. I believe it'll be early tomorrow. I'm going to have a few different and interesting things coming on in the next couple weeks. I've got another big deal signed with somebody, which I don't usually do, but I'll be doing a couple announcements on some of these in the next month or so. Next week, I'll have another article in E-commerce Bites that will be out. I don't have the tentative date as of yet, but E-commerce Bites, I don't get paid to promote it like that, but it is a site I've talked about for 3+ years on this channel. It's somebody I always go to for information. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on the duo here, two great guys, Mike and Orlando, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Thanks
Don.
for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate being on your show. We've actually had you on our show at one point, and let me tell you, that was such an awesome interview, and I love being able to talk with you. So, yeah, we're really excited. So I'm Mike, and this is Orlando, and we're a Pure Hustle podcast, and we've been doing a podcast for going on almost 3 years now.
Yeah,
We're getting close to
been a
3
while.
years. Yeah, and kind of the premise of our podcast, why we started, was that I was absolutely not a reseller, didn't know anything about reselling. Orlando had been reselling for years. And I said, hey, do you want to teach me? And we decided if he was going to teach me how to resell, we might as well actually record the process so that other people can benefit from it. So I'm still a part-time reseller, been doing this for almost 3 years now. And Orlando's kind of more of the veteran. And I think that allows our audience to hear two perspectives about reselling, what it's like kind of being the part-time new guy and also being somebody who does this and relies on reselling 100%.
Yeah, so I've been reselling for about 10 years, 3 years full time, and it's been a journey. I have no regrets about starting the podcast and been able to help a lot of people. And actually, I always say that we've been helped a lot more by the community than the help we've given out. And it's been awesome. That's why we love recording. We drop episodes twice a week. We're all over on social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Clubhouse, you name it, we're there. We're trying to keep tabs on everything. But we are resellers first and foremost before we are podcasters and YouTubers, but we definitely love being in the podcast space, and we're just honored to be here on the show with you, Don. Love your content, and so just appreciate the opportunity.
I'm honored to have you guys take the time out of your life. I know how it is too to actually be here on the show. It takes a little time, and we'll be on here for a little while. One thing that drew me, and you guys did reach out, but I did have you on my I think on Instagram, I think is where somebody else called you out. You were on Dom's channel, Primetime Treasure Hunter, I think a couple months before. I think you even reached out to me. I've seen some of their shows more so than pretty much most other folks. I don't have much time, but I do watch, and I basically have them in the background sometimes these days too. You guys are more like the real deal, I guess, is my book on it. I like the aspect, and it shows that you guys get along. You are interested in the whole aspect of it. Your content is more like kind of like my end of it on that, and that's a good fit for me. So I was really happy to have you guys on. One quick question here that I've had, as well as I've talked to a few other folks too. How did you meet originally to actually come together in the first place, I guess, is the big question.
I'll let Mike start the story.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we were actually both full-time educators, and I was a teacher, and he hired me. He was the vice principal at the school, my very first school that I worked at. And so he was my boss, and we had a pretty good, friendship. We would hang out every once in a while, at lunch and things like that. And he was always talking about reselling. And
more than I probably should have.
Yeah. And so he'd occasionally show on his phone, yeah, I went to Ross and bought these shoes and sold them. And one of the reasons he did that is we worked at a private school. And because we worked at a private school, the pay wasn't quite as much. And he really cared about the teachers and wanting to help the teachers, find ways to make extra money.
So there's different tiers of private schools. There's the very wealthy and affluent ones, and then there's the other ones that are kind of like the startups. So this was kind of one that wasn't the wealthy and affluent. So wanted to clear the space there. All right, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. And so he was my boss. And, at one point I kind of got interested, like, man, this reselling thing that he's talking about is really cool. And that kind of created more of a bond for us, because I was like, can you teach me how to do this? Because I really could use the extra money. And to be honest, it has been life-changing for me. And so I love the fact that our friendship started professional, then became a friendship, and then now is a professional friendship, which is it's pretty awesome.
Which has been good so far. So, I'm just joking. But, it's interesting because you go back about 5 years before I met Mike and started talking about reselling. I had always known that there's some money to be made in reselling. So years ago, I remember going to discount stores and picking up a pair of jeans, $15 to $45, but never took it seriously. Or as a teacher, we'd always get free textbooks. So we would sell those on Amazon. I remember 3 years in a row, I paid my rent through the summer from textbooks, because every convention you went to, they're like, hey, who wants textbooks? And I'm like, I was the first to raise my hand because I knew there was a lot of money, and no one understood that. And then, it all started with a joke. Me and two other friends, we were joking, saying, hey, what if we started with $20, and whoever makes the most amount of money in a year, instead of that person winning and the other person paying in, that person, because of all the money they made, they take the other two guys out to dinner to a really nice steakhouse. And it just started like that. And I'll never forget, meeting at McDonald's one day just to check up on each other. And we're all talking about what we picked up this week. And, one of my friends had 5 listings and one of my other friends had 3. And then they said, Orlando, how many listings do you have? And I said, I have 43 up. And they're like, what? 43? Are you crazy? Who has 43 listings? And I didn't even realize what I was doing at that time. Like, I knew that I was, selling stuff here and there, but I didn't think it was going to keep growing and growing and growing to eventually, 3 years ago, I would finally make more reselling than I was as an administrator. And, I have family and I wanted to spend a lot more time with my kids, and reselling allowed me to be able to walk away and still be financially sound. And so that's where Mike and I began our friendship into reselling, was about that same time. And that's when we started the podcast.
Very interesting. I've got a relationship with a few bosses here and there that, I've got one I've always talked about, Lou, this guy that, same basic principle. The business aspect, your feelings on business, I guess, is the attractor for me, that you guys are that into it. Obviously you live, eat, and breathe, I would say, reselling. Would you not agree?
Agreed. I mean, just before I came over for the podcast, I was listing items, and organizing inventory. So yes.
Yeah, he's always late to our recordings because he's got to drop something off at the post office. So
that is true. That is true.
They can pick up at your house.
No, I know. I just don't trust it. I'm still. It's on the way. It's on the way. So I figured I might as well drop off.
Yeah, we've been using pickup for years. I've never had an issue with the pickup, other than when my regular people are gone or there's some emergency or something. Like twice they haven't showed up for the day at all. But life happens. Let's hit some questions. I usually don't write down questions, but you guys, I haven't done an interview with somebody that I don't know personally very well for quite some time. So I wrote some stuff down for once. I actually have a sheet of paper for those who watch the channel. It's usually a tiny little Post-it. I actually wrote stuff down today. Now, I've watched some of your videos. I wanted to, get a good grasp on your thoughts on some things in the past and through today. I do stuff on trending. You had mentioned some comments on trending specifics, like the Harley Davidson shirt. Now, I've sold clothing. I've done all works and stuff. We did massive clothing. Trending on everything, changes constantly. We used to do the 3D emblem Harley shirts. You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yes, I still have not picked up one, but yes.
Well, they were going for, like, I first got them, they were going for like $350 a shirt, which is some phenomenal price. And I found it by accident. The same shirts now are like at $175 to say $200 max, and that's max. So can you want to go over a little bit in trending, how that's affected your business and what both of you have kind of done to first figure out the trending, and then second, what you did to switch off or fix the issues with things that were trending downwards? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So I'll start this off real quick, though. Dom, the primetime treasure hunter, had a question: was whether I was a good boss.
Oh, well, yeah. I'm just kidding. No. Yeah, Orlando was a great boss. He's one of those guys who cared about the kids, cared about us, and I appreciated that about him. And actually, he left the school before I did to go be a full-time reseller. And so as he was leaving is when we discussed starting the podcast. So I was bummed to see him leave there, but I'm glad that we were able to continue.
Yeah, he was there one more year after I left, and then he left too. So, all right. So back to your question, Don. So, when you first start reselling, I would say right now in the resale space, there's plenty of YouTube channels, podcasts, and so on to watch. So you begin to mimic what you see, right? Because it's really hard. I mean, you could just go to a thrift store. You could just go to a garage sale with your phone, but it's really hard to do. I mean, it takes a lot of time. And so I expedited that by watching a ton of YouTube. And one of the things I saw consistently was Harley Davidson, and Hawaiian shirts. That was one. And this was maybe 6-7 years ago. There's a couple of shows that were on A&E that were about thrifting, and that's what the individuals were picking up. And so I tried it to mimic the same. And the very first estate sale I went to, I had a major haul. I picked up about 100 or so Harley Davidson shirts, 20 pairs of Harley Davidson jeans, jackets. And those of you who have been following the podcast for a while, I talk about her. I call her Harley Lady, because that's what she was known as for the next year, because her husband had passed away and had amassed a large Harley Davidson collection. And she just kept contacting me, and she actually showed me some of the ropes of how to sell antiques and vintage items, just because they just had a lot of stuff. And so I got really into Harley, and I learned, about 3D emblem. I learned about the hog shirts. I learned about what was, really, really great to pick up, even though I never came across some of that stuff. And, when I came across that haul, I remember shirts were selling like the basic 1990s, 2000 shirts for about $50 to $80. I mean, they could have been anything. They could have had holes in them, and you could sell them for $50 all day long. And it was a glorious time, because I got in, and I remember sitting at dinner, and I'll get a cha-ching. I'm like, this shirt sold? Like, there's nothing to this shirt. It's not even special, but it's over 50. And then what I noticed over the years, the price kept dropping, and it kept dropping. And inventory was actually getting easier to find. And then what I started figuring out is that over time is that the price just declined. So the trend went down, and then the shirts went to like $20, $30. If you still found the 3D emblems, they're still valuable, but they weren't as valuable as they used to be. I mean, there's some that would go $800 to $900. If you had the ones with the big hog on a Harley, those are really nice. And now, as a result of TikTok and as a result of social media, you have a lot of these young influencers that don't even ride Harleys that are wearing Harley Davidson, or they're taking Harley Davidson shirts and they're tie-dyeing them, or they're crop topping them, or whatever they're doing. And they're valuable because, this whole idea of sustainability and thrifting has become real popular. So I'm seeing Harley shirts on the rise again, not to the levels that they were 6-7 years ago, but again, it's about trending. So during that time, I had to pivot. And so I pivoted to more Western wear. So I got into, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, and other kinds of, vintage Western gear like buckles. And it just carried me through. And so that market's still been really strong. And as you grow as a reseller, you become more selective about what you source and what you're willing to spend your time on.
No, absolutely. And there's actually, I kind of look at it, there's like a spectrum when it comes to trends. So you're going to have some trends that are going to be longer lasting. Like I've noticed that decades tend to go into trends, right? For a while, 70s were big, and then the 80s were big, and now the 90s decade's coming in. And the nice thing is those kinds of trends tend to last a little bit longer, maybe several years, where that decade or items from that time frame are really big. So as a reseller, you can capitalize on that. So maybe 90s grunge bands are really popular right now. And so if you're finding those items, probably for the next several years, you're going to be able to make good profit off them. Other items, the trends are much shorter time frame. Maybe, for instance, when the COVID pandemic first happened, bread makers were selling for just outrageous prices, right? Because people were interested in making their own bread. Or sometimes a new movie comes out, new Lion King movie comes out. All of a sudden, Lion King plush that was worthless yesterday is now worth some pretty good money. And so there's a spectrum when it comes to trends. And so the hard part is trying to time it and understand what's going on. And sometimes you miss it, right? I had some Bulls, Chicago Bulls stuff, and then when the Michael Jordan documentary thing,
that's right, The Last Dance.
yeah, and Last Dance came out, I wasn't aware that it was coming out, and so I sold a bunch of stuff way too cheap, and it was because I missed that trend. Whereas other times, you catch it in time, you know what's coming, you're able to raise some prices. But the trick is finding out, okay, when do you get out of this? When do you don't want to be the last person holding on when there's no more demand, because it's that supply and demand that everybody's looking for. And so one of the things is just paying attention to what's happening in your stores. For instance, Shape Up shoes for a while were really valuable, and then there was a time where they weren't quite selling as much. So as I see items have been sitting, they haven't been selling for a price, I just started adjusting the price and recognizing maybe it's time to leave this market. Maybe this trend is starting to end, and I need to start buying inventory for the next trend, so that way I can capitalize on that.
Yeah, that's this basically the same thing for like discontinued and some of the bulk purchases. If like you're a bulk purchaser, and I've done some bulk in the past, quite a few, or wholesale. When the wholesale line just comes out, it's gonna hopefully you pick something good. If it's good, you're going to be hopefully the first one in the door with it. But as time goes by, it's going to trend down the minute other people either check on what you're doing, or people are checking the same or buying from the same wholesaler as you. They're going to figure out what's going out the door to you, and then they're going to kind of mimic it, and then you've got to trend out. So it's get in quick, be the first one in the door, first one out the door, and then, get the profits up there. And as it trends down, obviously either weigh your leverage in there, whether you can control it or not. If you can't control it, then for me, it's just, let's start to get it off my shelf, no more reorders, and look for the next item down the line. I use Google Trends a lot. I don't know if you guys ever mess around with that, but keyword jamming and SEO across the board, that stuff works great if you've got, the basics on what you're looking for. I talk about Christmas lights. It's something you can sell all year round. It does great on Amazon. I get them for nothing at the end of the year. And, that's another one of those like leverage items that you can, buy 10 cents on the dollar, maybe even less than that, come February. And it's usually the Junko ones that are all the same color that are left, or all whites, and they'll sell the best on Amazon. So knowing how to leverage, knowing what's going to trend at certain times, summer trends and all that stuff. That's very helpful. Good responses. Great answer on that, both of you guys. Now the next question here is from my point of view. I love long tail items here. Now, I know I've heard Orlando talk about it. Mike, I've talked somewhat about it too. You guys both have somewhat different philosophies on things like sales and things like that. I think Mike says he doesn't do any sales, and Orlando, I think you do. Now, I go through those stages where I'll do them and then I won't do them, and things along that line. Do you, either one of you, I mean, is long tail a large percentage of either one of your revenue, or is it the quick flips? Let's get them in, let's get them out, let's get some return on our investment. Where do you guys stand on that aspect of it, I guess?
So there's two models for me. I haven't talked about that. I also sell on Amazon. So somebody had asked about, how many listings I have. So I have close to 2,300 listings on eBay. I'm close. My goal is by June, I have 3,000. I do have an employee or a helper now that's helping me do some listings. So I'm getting there faster. And maybe by May, I should be there. But on Amazon, I follow trends more on Amazon. So those of you that listen to the podcast, I had talked about how I made, I forget how much it was, like 60K, 57K selling clippers this last year, because clippers were hot. People were trying to get a hold of them. And, I jumped in on that on Amazon, and I went all in, and I traveled the country, and I was able to make a really nice profit. So it all depends on what works for you. As a full-time seller, I like the long tail game. As far as eBay goes, I like having a good inventory of listings because, I don't mind listing every day. I don't mind shipping every day, but I do like taking my breaks. I do like, traveling the country for a week with my kids. I do like, just saying, hey, I'm going to just focus on Amazon. And I find that having a large enough inventory allows you to do that. Now, the key thing in having a large inventory is your cost. So if your cost is low in comparison to how much you're paying in insertion fees and eBay store fees, then I think it's totally worth it. You know, if I bought something for $2 and it's only cost me, let's say worst case scenario, I don't have an eBay store and I'm paying, I think it's 10 cents, maybe it's more, the insertion fee, and it's 35. Sorry, it's been a long time since you should have an eBay store, by the way. But if you don't, 35 cents, if that item sells for 50 to 80 in 3 years, it's worth having. I mean, as long as you have the space and you're not losing a lot of money on it, it's completely worth having. And especially if it's a smaller item, it's not a big deal. Like I talk about buckles all the time. I have several hundred buckles. I paid maybe $3 to $4. I sell them for 50 to 80, sometimes 100. They don't take up a lot of space. Doesn't cost me a lot. I'm okay sitting on it because sometimes you're just waiting for the right buyer, right? I buy a lot of vintage pieces where it's tied into a company. And so unless somebody from that company wants that specific item, it's probably going to sit for a while. But when it comes to Amazon, I'm a big believer that you have to be the first out. I think if you hold on too long, you could make money. You could wait till all the low sellers sell all their stuff and then hold on. But chances are with Amazon, with the storage fees and the, you know, just all the fees tied into it, it's not worth it. And so for me, I'm very fast nickel on Amazon. That's changed. When I first started Amazon 7 years ago, there were no, you know, long-term storage fees. There were no, you know, you wouldn't get these random notices that you have to be compliant with something and send in a safety data sheet. Like none of that stuff existed. It was the beautiful Wild West of Amazon where you could send anything and just sat there and no one charged you. Now the whole game's changed. So for example, I sold some toys over Q4 that now I'm getting that they want all these data sheets. And I'm like, whew, I don't have to deal with that anymore. I sold through those items. I'm done. That's it. I don't have to send in anything. You can pull my listing. It doesn't matter to me anymore. But on eBay, I do like having that long tail.
No,
I'd pull them down yourself if I was you.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So for me, I would say we kind of have like three very limited resources that we're always dealing with, right? Time, money, and space. And maybe we'd even throw another one in there that's kind of availability to source inventory. Is inventory available to you? And so the model of selling that you pick up is going to depend on which of those resources you have the most of. Do you have more time? Do you have more money? Or do you have more space? And for me, as a part-time reseller, I don't have as much time as I would like to maybe go really fast nickel, because I would need to be able to source a lot of items consistently, be shipping a lot of items, and be willing to take maybe lower profit margin and just hope that the velocity of sales is going to carry me through. But I also don't have the space that I can be extremely long-term, long tail on everything. So I'm trying to find kind of a happy medium there. I have a certain amount of space that's available to me. And so what I've done is I've kind of curated my collection, as it were. I started a little bit more. I would just buy whatever would make profit and I'd hold on to it as long as I needed to. And as my storage availability is kind of shrinking, I'm curating my products by selling off the stuff that I'm willing to take less of a profit on because I need that space. Space is an important commodity to me. And I get a little bit more inventory flow or a little more cash flow that I can use for buying items that are going to be more valuable if I want to hold long tail or are going to take up less space. So it really just depends on what you're doing. I think if I had the choice, I'd like to have items move a little quicker and not have to worry so much about space. But then I've also heard people talk about maybe they're only selling 10 items a month, but because the value, the return that they're getting on each one of those items is so high that makes up for what I maybe am selling in 60 items in a month or 70 items in a month. So trying to find that balance has been really tough for me, but I like the way my store is moving. I've started kind of selling some items a lot faster if they take up a lot of space, or if they were an early buy that's not really worth holding on to as much as I thought it was when I was new. And now I'm a little more selective with what I'm buying. So if it is an item that's going to take space or is going to take a little longer, that it's definitely going to be worth that wait.
I believe Mike and I have both become more selective as far as, I mean, you know, I think about VCRs and so on, like those, there's good money in them, but then you have to test them. You have to take the pictures and all. And And this is why I'm big on clothing, because clothing, I can move a lot faster when it comes to clothing. So I'm willing to source more clothing. I still have VCRs. I'll still pick them up. But for example, the other day I was at a thrift store and they had a thing that launched clay pigeons. And it was like $20 and you could sell it for $150.
Shooting trigger, the trigger arm.
Correct. Yes, that's what it was. And so, I looked at it, and Orlando of 5 years ago probably would have picked that up. And I opened the box and it looked kind of new. And then I was thinking about the hour and a half I would spend trying to figure this thing out. Then I have to go take it onto a field. I have to order, the clay to put in there. I have to shoot it, and I thought, I don't want to do that. Like, that's a lot of time where I could pick up, 5 pairs of shoes that I could make the same amount of money, and it would take me a third of the time in doing that. Now, would it be really cool to do all that and to sell it? Yeah, there's sometimes I'll pick up stuff like that, but your mentality changes the longer you do this, and then you find what you're really good at and you just focus on that.
Yeah, that's I was just going to say the same thing. As you go on, you pickier. I pass up stuff constantly. I mean, even in the videos, why didn't you get this? Why didn't you get that? I don't, it's not important. I want what I want these days. I've got the freedom to sell what I want, basically, if I want to dig into it. Like you were talking about quantity. I know people that only sell a couple dozen items and they make more than me by far. They're in the million mark range and they're selling a couple dozen items, but they're selling quantity of those same items. For me, we would rather have higher dollar items. We hold out. I put higher prices. I have been lucky enough to be able to talk to at least a dozen people that have 100,000 plus listings on eBay and about the same on Amazon through some of the groups and people that have reached out to me. Quantity is my role at this point now because of what I sell. I can afford to, eat up the space. We're literally in the process of hopefully getting something right now that's way bigger than we got now. So, I'm not going to have as much issue in quantity seems to it. Everybody is going to have, anybody watching today, everybody's going to have a different take that works for them. There's no right or wrong way. I'm sure you two disagree on a lot of stuff here and there on the whole business, and you guys get along. Obviously, you can tell you guys have a good personal interaction with each other. So, I would say that, there's a million ways to do this, I guess, is the point. So let me hit you up with a couple other ones here. Now, this goes on right off of that. We're going to piggyback off that one. Inventory control. Now, once in a blue moon, we'll send somebody through. One of my employees will pull out stuff and we'll look and examine images for items that have been up 3-4 years or longer. Or we'll go back in and revisit them to check to see if the prices again, trending. We'll go to trending for a second, but if the prices trend, is there something that you do or that you would recommend for people to do first off on that? Because obviously if you've got, into the hundreds or thousands of listings, you're going to have some, especially the way Orlando has talked before, that run into the gambit of years up on the platform. What would be your take on that aspect of both of you guys, Mike and Orlando?
Yeah, so I think I actually recently talked about this. The strategy that we implemented, and I had a lot of success with it, was going through the stuff that's been up the longest, right? So finding the items, because you're right. When you have 500 to 1,000 to 3,000 or more items, it becomes difficult. And I think the way my mind works is a lot of times I want to say, let's fix all my shoes. Let's fix all my electronics. And the problem is it becomes difficult, even though you're focusing on one thing, to check so many different trends with items that might be doing just fine right now, because I just listed that a month ago. So what I've started doing is, looking at the items that have been inactive or have been active but not had activity on them for the longest period of time. So I'll filter my items, what's been up, what hasn't sold. And then that kind of triggers for me that maybe I need to do a little bit of research. Price trending, is there been a change? It looks like this this brand of Hawaiian shirt isn't really selling anymore. Maybe I need to lower the price. I've also tried to do a couple of auctions on those. And another thing that I've done is I've kind of realized, and Orlando and I have tried to go back and forth to figure out what the best is with this, is ending the listing completely maybe redoing a couple of the things and re-uploading it. So that way the item hasn't really gone stale. So if we can get some more watchers on it, a little bit more activity, because we're kind of believers that the longer an item sits and it doesn't have a sell, like it's not selling, your sell-through rate kind of goes down. It's that item's going to get pushed further and further down in the algorithm. And even if it is something someone's looking for, somebody might have posted something last month, the same item, and that goes first because it's newer, it's got a little bit more activity on it. So just by ending a few of those listings, relisting it a little bit cheaper, maybe adjusting descriptions or titles, because sometimes I look back to items that I listed a year or 2 years ago and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, I didn't know what I was doing with titles back then. And so fixing a few things, lowering prices, or even being willing to say, I'm willing on some of these items to sell at a break-even point if it means I get this item out of my inventory, I get a little bit of money, and now with that wisdom that I have now, I could use that money to buy better inventory that's not going to go stale.
So I'm different than Mike when it comes to this, and we go back and forth about this. So I may have
wait years.
I will wait years, and I have the unpopular opinion, but it worked for me, and so I don't mind. Now it could be, let's say Don were to audit my store, maybe Don would find a lot of flaws. But what I've always done is I'm a big believer in list it and forget it, and the reason being is, eBay, there was a time where eBay would renew your listings after 30 days. And that went away 2-3 years ago, and everything went good till canceled unless you did auctions. Now, I remember when we went to eBay Open and that wasn't eBay Open. It was an eBay event in Los Angeles. I remember when they were promoted listings and they're pushing it. And I remember I had asked a question. I said, hey, listen, so if I have something that's been sitting in my store for 4 or 5 years, obviously now that you're ending the 30-day renewal, those items are going to get pushed way down in the search. But what if every single item I have is promoted? What if I just go base 2%? And the feedback I got was that's the one way you can keep your items relevant in the feed. So I tested it a lot, and I went to really old items that I had, and sure enough, they'd come up on the first page. Now, again, I don't know how eBay works with that, because I could also search something else and it doesn't show up anywhere, right? We all been there. That's where all the throttling conspiracies come through and so on. So I do list it and forget it. I have my stuff promoted at 2%. I'm not paying anything until that item sells. And so I'm not losing any money up front. And then on top of that, I have best offer on all my items. For the most part, I would say probably 10% of my items aren't best offer, because those are items I know will sell at a certain price. And so I'm just going to let it sit and let people pay the full price. But I have best offer. And if the price has gone down already, best offer allows the market to conduct, that sale and tell me, yeah, this is what it's worth now. And that's why you're getting these kind of offers. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that's similar to some of what I do here as well. I don't put everything up and forget about it. I pay almost nothing for most of it. So for me, I don't worry. It doesn't matter. Most of the paper everybody almost gives away these days around here anyway. So it's not an ordeal with us. I just lost my train of thought on that. I wrote a quick note. Auction versus bin. You were talking about auctions and things like that as well. Yeah, I don't do many auctions. I mean, how many auctions? Is that something that you still see as a viable means for certain items? For what you guys sell, of course.
I honestly don't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really typically work for most of the items we're selling, because I will sell certain collectibles at times. A lot of the things I guess I have are technically collectible, but after doing a few interviews with people who've done a lot of auctions and they're able to move a lot of their inventory quickly, I kind of have been inspired. Like, I want to try this. So I've tried it a few times with like my most stale items. Like, all right, I'm going to do 10 listings. I'm going to put them on auction, and I'm just going to see what happens and see if that gets some activity going in my store. I've had a few sales through that, but there's so much more involved in it. And I like being able to list something and just know that I'm going to get what it's worth. And if I need to check that its value is, gone up or down, I can do that. But I don't have to worry about, we had an issue. I didn't know about auctions in this sense until I tried it. You have to pay in order to schedule an auction, right? So unless so unless you wanted to like sit and start, because there's certain times, certain days, like I want my auction to end on Saturday evening or Sunday evening. Well, that means I have to, at a certain time, certain day, schedule it. Otherwise, I have to pay more for a shortened time frame or a longer time frame, and I have to schedule it. So it's just so much hassle. So unless I had a really unique item, I might do auctions just to clear things out if I want to put it rock bottom prices. But that's mostly, I'd also be willing to put it out on the side of the road and do a garage sale.
Yeah, my philosophy has been, we tried it. I mean, on the podcast, we did an experiment. I forget, several hundred items on auction, and it didn't go anywhere. Now, is it possible that I put my starting price too high? That's very possible. But at the same time, I know in our current culture, everybody wants things now. They don't want to wait 7 days. They don't want to wait 14 days. And so I'm very big on the buy it now or best offer, just because people want to buy. Even myself, when I go shopping, the only time I use auctions is when I'm trying to source items for really cheap because no one's paying attention to something, and I'll jump in and I'll snipe it. But outside of that, when I want stuff, I want stuff. And so I don't know how many of the items I source. I don't think I've ever used auction, even on very valuable items I've picked up, because I knew what the price was going to be. I knew that I'd have a seller eventually, and so I just let it sit. So I think there was a time for auction. There still may be a time for auctions. I've heard people talk about using auctions to bring activity into their store, but I can say for myself, I've experimented several times with auctions, and I still haven't found it to be a winning solution, but I could be wrong.
I have similar results. I usually use auctions to blow out just junk. I'll just let it set. There's stuff I don't really care about. If it sells, it sells. And I usually just do 330 twice, or it ends up 330 for 10 days. And then that uses up my 3,000 auctions. And, if they sell, they sell. They don't, they don't. I have actually started researching that for the last couple of months. You can tell what's best by comparing the auction results in Terapeak with what the bin prices are. I mean, it's the options built into it. So you can look yourself. The majority of everything I sell, I've got like a 95% better chance in doing a bin high price with a BO and just letting it go that way and never having to worry about the auction running or starting or anything else like that. With Mike's, you were talking about when to start it and stuff like that. We went into that too. I looked at all the times I used to do Saturday or Sunday night to Sunday night because it seemed to give you the best results when auctions were really hot and stuff like that. I have come to the conclusion that as long as you end it after 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my time, it doesn't matter the day of the week if it's collectibles at least. It doesn't matter at all. Never end them in the morning though, because I never have the luck in the morning. At least that's my personal experience there. Let you guys, mostly large chunk of what you two sell is more clothing related. So I know Mike sells some vintage and you too with the buckles, as I mess with buckles pretty heavily too. I've got a couple hundred here myself. Lot of stuff. It depends on what you're selling with what works best for it. You can't overprice clothing. You can't, be the high end clothing on certain brands. You can't do that with books. I can't do that with video games. You're stuck with certain markets to follow the trending price because everybody knows what a specific game runs, a specific book usually or something like that. I know what the jeans I usually wear cost. I know what my shirts cost, and nobody's going to pay more for that. Just like I'm sure with clothing, I always do or try to always do free shipping. Never do free shipping on anything I ship these days, but clothing, that's it. It's the only thing. I mean, do you guys do free shipping, or how do you figure that with clothing versus collectibles, I guess, on what you guys sell?
So I'm very big, unless it's first class, I don't do free shipping. And even with first class, I'm up in the air now because first class is almost the price of priority, especially when you get into the 14, 15 ounces. I mean, it's just, might as well throw it in a priority envelope. Might as well throw it in a padded envelope because it's only a couple bucks away. And I've done that sometimes, especially if the item's over $50. If I'm selling, a shirt that I sold for $100, I'm going to send the priority because I'm basically paying for the insurance. And so I've been very big on anything over, the 16 ounce limit on eBay. You can't get that with the post office, but you can get it on eBay. I charge shipping. And so I charge shipping on shoes. I charge shipping on any item that is, not first class available. I think Mike does kind of the same.
Yeah, pretty similar, except for I do have quite a few items we'll do free shipping in the sense of what I'm looking for, like when I'm using Terapeak, or I'm looking at the sell-through rate of items in the comps, when I'm looking up 90-day comps, if I see that items are selling typically for $30 with $9.99 shipping, $30 8 shipping, and so basically I say this item is worth $40, right? So maybe I'll put it up for $39 free shipping. And I think that a lot of people recognize that it's free shipping, the total cost is going to be same or less, and sometimes you're almost playing that mind game. People are thinking, hey, I get free shipping. The problem with that is occasionally I lose, right? Occasionally the item, because if I'm not doing calculated shipping, there's times where I only built in about $9 cost of shipping and it ended up costing $13. Man, I lost a little bit here. But there's other times where I end up winning on that, where by not charging calculated, I could actually end up profiting a little bit. Like, hey, this is kind of going down the street and it cost me way less to ship it than I was expecting. So I find that to be pretty much a draw. It evens out. So I found success with both. I'm really looking for a competitive edge wherever I can find it. And sometimes, it's those the marketing tricks that the big companies are using, right? Instead of saying something's $10, it's $9.99. And for whatever reason, like we eat that stuff up. And so anytime I can utilize those skills, and who knows, I might be messing up sometimes. I don't have all of the marketing experience that these companies are putting behind it, but I'll assume they've done their research and they know what they're doing.
Now, one thing I do differently is that I'll try to charge less than most people when it comes to shipping. And so this may be debatable, Don, you do a lot of calculated shipping. I've watched your shows before. And so I do a lot of flat rate. And so sometimes I end up making money on the shipping and sometimes I end up losing maybe $1. But if it keeps me less than everybody else, I'm willing to lose money on the ship. I know this can sound crazy. I'm willing to lose, $1 on the shipping than lose money on the price of the item, which in the end it evens out. So I'm able to sell my items for a little bit more because my shipping's a little bit less. And so it ends up, higher in the search, the top rated seller badge. I think it helps out. I could be wrong. But I found, I just recently changed my shipping. I used to have all my shoes. I used to sell them like $1 or $2 less than most people as far as the charge of shipping. And because of the postal rates keep going up, I end up raising my price on all of it. Anything that shipped padded, I raised all my prices on all those items. And I did that through the business policies. And it finally came a time, but there was a good 2-3 years where my prices were probably the cheapest in shipping. And I think it gave me a competitive edge. And now I had to change things a little bit because of the rising prices.
Yeah, again, it comes down to what you sell. I can put mine higher than everybody else and still sell the same items. Mm-hmm. Again, it comes down to marketing, the image you use, the title you use, your keywords, and all that kind of stuff, how quick you answer and all that stuff. I'll give up the fact that the item's going to sit there and run and sit there and relist because all the other factors outweigh any loss when I'm going to check my items. I'll do a clean scrub on my browser. It'll be like from scratch. There'll be no history, no nothing. I'll delete everything. And I can come in there and find, specifics still, even though they've been up for 3-4 years. It depends on, let me put it this way. I've spent hours altogether, probably either on a live video conferences with eBay and stuff like that. A lot of what I think that they say, the people that you or me or anybody talks to, is what they're told to say, because these people don't have IT degrees. None of the ones I've talked to do. And they talk about how this and how that works and stuff. If you've got a couple of stores and you sell mass volume, there's like patterns that actually show up as to where your items. I have item numbers, like my bin locations, to where I pick my stuff in my titles. And like one day will come by and I'll sell stuff to like 7 different people from 2 bins that were listed within a few days apart, on multiple days. So, I mean, there's a pattern. There's things that we've tested and checked out between one store and another with similar, bin registration numbers and stuff. I think that the amount of stuff they put together to determine where you show up is based on, a lot of different things. And again, I do have an IT degree, so I kind of have to do some assumptions on how they set it up, the coding aspect of it, on what you can and can't do and what would cost them a lot of work. eBay's code in my book is cheap. They've probably cut and pasted a lot of like blocked code from other stuff. That's a standard practice. Everybody does it. You can cut and paste routines and all kinds of things. They're all nested in each other. You got one nest that works. You can cut it, drop it here. I don't think it's as advanced as they say. I don't want to ramble on there. That's just my take on part of that. Now, you touched, Mike, just a second ago, and this is one of the questions I honestly had, and I'm glad you brought that up, on what corporate America does on this. Now, I talk a lot about perceived value in what you do. $9.99, $10.99, $99.99. And, the same philosophy, honestly and sincerely works. I've seen in college, we actually went over this in a class. There was an economics class, and perceived value is brought up. Obviously, you take micro and macroeconomics, and you'll go into that and you'll cover all that. It's an actual thing that works, and it works for eBay. It works for vintage collectibles. It works on Amazon in collectibles and historical items as well, too. Do you guys ever wave that into there, like with perceived value, whether it be in a keyword that you find maybe works better because it relates more to the item in a perceived value or anything like that? Does that make any sense? I know that's maybe.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I'd have to think a little bit. I'm sure I have examples of utilizing specific keywords to increase that perceived value. But I do think, even because we talked about, and you mentioned also the $9.99, but we've perceived value also sometimes is an increase. Maybe if you're a little bit higher than everybody else's, people think it's worth more, even if
That's
it's the same, especially
point.
when you're talking about used stuff. Yeah. So if you're talking about just new in box items, it's harder to pull that on somebody because, if I'm looking at a brand new Nintendo Switch, why would I pay the person who's wanting $25 more? But if it's for maybe a collectible book or something like that, and I see one that's a little bit pricier, the pictures are a little bit better, I'm automatically going to assume, hey, this is the better book. This is the better collectible version because it's a little bit more. And so I do think there are little tricks you can do to increase that perceived value. And maybe I think books might be a good example, especially when you're coming with keywords, is recognizing what is the lingo that's used in this community. And so you might find something that you want to sell and you're not in that community. And so if you jump on a Reddit or you jump on a Facebook community, a Facebook group, and you realize what are the keywords they're using, what is their lingo, and if you start utilizing those words, because every subculture has its own glossary. Every subculture has its own definitions of words, the words they're going to use a lot, even abbreviations. And so if it's small items and I'm only going to make a $20 profit, I don't care. But one of the first things I sold was a decoy duck, and I did a whole bunch of research on decoy ducks and paint types and wood types, and I made sure to add that stuff in there, and who the author was, what years it was printed, the number in the run, all of those things. And that got me a higher value than other people who were selling similar.
And that was one of your first sales.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was a little naive and very eager to learn as much as I could, but I think that's true for lots of different, niches that you get involved in, is recognizing that if you don't know enough about this culture, spend 10 or 15 minutes learning about that culture and learning about the things they talk about and value. And you might see an extra 50 to 100% return on investment just by that little bit of time. And you learn more about that niche, so you can spot those things. Oh, they really like this style of metal, or this pattern on this type of clothing, because you spend a few minutes learning that.
Yeah, and I do a couple of things too. It's not, I don't call it cheating, but I'll find what the highest price of an item, what it's sold for. And so I look at the keywords that individual used, and then I'll use those keywords, because obviously it was able to command more money. Now, I also look at the pictures, what kind of pictures they have, and so on. So if I find that my pictures are, superior to the other listings, that my shipping is better, I also offer free returns, which that's a whole nother discussion. But if I have all these things, I will list mine higher, because I'm a big believer that when you're searching for stuff, and you're looking and you find the lowest price, sometimes you might go like, why are they selling this for so cheap? Now, some people might disagree with me, but I'm a big believer that there's this kind of intrinsic value that's brought when something is listed higher, of this feeling that this individual, knows what they're selling. They obviously have great pictures. They take care of their inventory. They're a top rated seller, so they do their shipping. I mean, I have same day shipping offered on my listing. So all those things I think play a part into the perceived value, and therefore I'm able to sell, I would say probably 80 to 90 anecdotally. I'm just throwing that out there. 80 to 90 of the stuff that I sell higher than most people that have items up. And so I don't have, several hundred packages going out a month, but I mean, I might, but I don't, whenever people show those Monday, like, here's my 50 packages that I ship out, I may have 10 or 15 packages, but those 10 or 15 are just equivalent to that person that's sending out 100 packages that day. And it was less labor because I was able to sell stuff at a higher price than most. So, and I hope that didn't sound braggadocious.
That's exactly.
I'm sorry.
That you're literally said word for word on most things that I've said on this channel as well. I don't care how many packages I send out, a dollar value itself. I'd rather send out 5 packages that equal your 100 packages any day of the week, because I'm doing less work, making the same amount of money. I don't have to worry about other things. It takes me less time, and off we go. Now, Mike mentioned something that I did want to address because it was a great comment. I talk about this occasionally too. You had mentioned Reddit and looking up the specifics for that niche. I literally have, and I may have shown some of my Patreons before, I've probably got about 200, 300 sites that I save for individual niches on my tab. And in fact, they're on other bookmarks right up here right now that I can just go to either go to a Reddit page, a price guide page, a catalog list page, or something like that for everything. So you guys are hitting the exact same things that I hit pretty much on every one of these aspects of it. There's a lot you need to know about specifics if you want to get the most money. I'm heavy into buttons right now, and I'm outselling, I think, almost every other person on there with quantity up right now. I think we've got 2,000 button listings we've been able to get up so far. And I'm outselling them, and that's because I've ID'd them properly. I've learned, I know the terms. I've done buttons for years. And that goes for, I think, anything in the collectibles area in general. A lot of people who aren't collectors don't get the collectors area. I'm a collector too. We do Lulu Burlu. I don't know if you guys know what Lulu Burlu is, but we go heavy into some vintage toys and collectibles. There's a whole nother world that people don't understand who aren't collectors. People who are true collectors of anything, anything you sell, whether it be shoes or not, I don't care if I buy something, if I have to spend $10 on the item and it costs me $50 to have it shipped from the Netherlands. If I want that item, I'm going to spend the money on it. And that's another reason why perceived value comes into play. If you are a player, and somebody made a comment, I know I'm terrible on comment, my reading ability from where I'm at, no matter what, I've got very, very bad issue with one of my eyes. So I do apologize for not getting to a lot of the comments today. But, if you know collectibles per se versus, say, clothing, there's more opportunities. If you learn those areas, there's way more money. People come to me for something or to somebody else for something because of the knowledge. Probably almost every day this week, in the last couple of weeks in a row, somebody's asked me specifics about an item that they either were interested in or after they bought it. You being able to answer those questions means that those people are coming back to me. Mm-hmm. Now, I know, Orlando, I've heard you talk before about repeat customers, and this all comes into play with perceived value. You guys, I'm sure from other conversations, I've heard you two talking about feedback and such forth too. With your feedback, that's all play into the perceived value. They see you guys got top-notch feedback. I'm a top-rated plus seller. You guys are. That's important. That's a perceived value. You got stuff priced higher. You're a top-rated seller. You've got quantity and niche. And then they look at the other guy, and the other guy's got 4 of these up. It's kind of screwball picture. He doesn't have the right keywords. His pricing structure is all over the place. He doesn't specialize. They're going to trust the person who is perceived to be the pro in there pretty much every time. I'm not going to buy from somebody who doesn't know how to ship. I get collectibles, and I've got one here now that was ruined. They folded it in half to fit it in a different box and ruined it. So you got to understand the market. So Mike made an awesome point on knowing what you're selling, more so than everybody else. If you know more than the other people, That's how you make the money. That's how you guys score something, is the people didn't price it to where it was worth or something like that. Let me go back onto there. Now, I got to mention this one here because you've got a book behind you that I've looked at. I don't know how many times. I own it. I've read it. I just want to know which one of you owns Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
So we both own it. We actually have level up reviews as part of our podcast. What that means is we take a book and we'll discuss the book. And so every third episode or so. So we just finished a book called Atomic Habits, but we've done a ton of books. I mean, we've done from richest man in Babylon to we've done Grant Cardone, the TEDx Rule. We've done Napoleon. I mean, we've done pretty much every entrepreneur book that you can think of. We're just adding to it, and we've also brought some educational books, which I thought were really great to reselling that a lot of people haven't brought into the space, such as Grit. Grit's a very powerful book that talks about how passion and perseverance count double when it comes to in comparison to talent. And so, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad, very impactful for me. It changed. All these books have been impactful. I mean, some more than others. You can hear our level up reviews. There's actually one book that we kind of just say, I don't even understand why people like this book, but we're real and we're candid about it. And so Rich Dad Poor Dad was very big about making money passively, right? And how do you do that, right? Because I really believe in the reselling space. Reselling is a very active thing. Like, you may see these gurus and the ads that might have showed up before this live that talks about make that passive income, have your Amazon store automated. That's all garbage. And in Rich Dad Poor Dad, Kiyosaki is very big about the idea of don't have all your money just stowed away in a mattress. Like, do other things, have other streams of income. And Mike and I would say I've grown personally myself in the last year, very big into getting into other streams, whether it be into the stock market, into crypto, losing money too. But at the same time, I'm still making money, finding other ventures. Mike is starting other businesses here on the side that we're going to talk about here in the podcast in a few weeks. And so all these books that we read have changed a lot of what we do. I mean, there's one book that was a major game changer, Never Split the Difference, by Chris Voss, all about negotiating.
Yeah, negotiating. If you want a book on just dealing with great conversations to negotiate, and you'd be surprised. Obviously, we think of the obvious ones, like if I'm at a garage sale, that's a big negotiation, but there's lots of negotiations that we have in all of our interactions. So yeah, the book reviews have been great. I think that one of the things that the Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of encouraged me, and I've read other books that have done the same, is the importance of having productive property, having real assets. And I've kind of have this theme going into 2021 of wanting to develop a anti-fragile home, meaning that I want I don't want to be able to be controlled by whether it's an employer or whether it's a freak incident in the economy. I want to be able to withstand trouble and be able to keep going because I own productive property, that I'm in charge of my own finances and wealth. And I think reselling has been such a huge part of that. But all of the books that we've done in our level up reviews have been great because like somebody said in the comments, knowledge is power. And it goes true with knowing and understanding a niche, but also just improving your life and realizing that the relationships I have with other people, the interactions I have with customers and clients and making business deals, all of those things have to do with how much do I understand up here and how much can I put that into practice.
Yeah, I just want to add to that real quick. I know we're on a soapbox right now, but reselling is a lifestyle, right? But you can't let reselling be your only lifestyle. Like you have to think of other avenues. And so, some of these books we read, and I jokingly laughed because I told Mike, I said, we're going to read this because I want to debunk this. If this is garbage, I want to call it out. And some of the books were like, actually, there's a reason why people read this book, and implemented some of the stuff like Atomic Habits, very basic things, but they apply to reselling. Like I've been able to, there's this thing called habit stacking where you have two good habits and you put another good habit in between that allows you to consistently have that habit happen. And so listing is a very big habit that we all need as resellers to be consistent about, right? Researching all these different things. So for us, like I said, the podcast has done more than allowed us to help people. It's helped us, and it's forced us to even be, I guess, personal development, be in the area of personal development, not only as business people, but all around in just thinking about finances.
Yeah, I've read the book. It's a good book. It teaches the aspect of understanding how finances and banking and business work in general. And far too many people, younger folks these days, don't seem to have the basics. I'm not trying to criticize any generation or anything, just in general, looking at my kids and the folks that come over here, money. I mean, money's important for the fact that you got to be able to live, and not understanding how things work get people in trouble, I guess, is the point. You both were saying, Mike brought in the stability aspect of it. We've expanded again. You guys are, as you've said, and I've seen some videos you talked about stuff. I've expanded into other, obviously, revenue streams. Having multiple revenue streams these days helps you to be a stable and not to be affected by market changes and environment, as you guys both said very eloquently. So that is an important aspect. That's like the same thing as to only listing on one site. If something happens to the site or there's some major scandal, again, eBay's had a major scandal not too long ago, as we all know, and it's still going on. There's still aspects of it. So you never know what's going to happen that could take a tank to one area. So that's, again, why multiple avenues of anything, you have to have multiple streams coming in. We've got more than a dozen these days, and I've added another one just the other day. As I was saying in the beginning, we did sign something. So that's part of it. It can be related to this. It can be wholesale. It can be anything. We do toys now. I've got 3D printers running like 24/7 for the last month and a half. So, I mean, whatever you can do, there's always abilities. I do printing, we do postcards, I do art, I do local advertisement stuff for people here. I know you guys got some stuff going on too. So, don't just lock everything everybody has into one market, one area, one site. Having all your eggs in one basket, I've learned way back when things go wrong, you're screwed. I literally wasn't going to do full-time reselling, but things happened. I was going to take a job. If I took a job, even as a regional, I'd be unemployed with no check coming in with the pandemic. So, instead of where I'm at now with still going up and improving our sales, our store, and, YouTube in general. So, there's a lot to it. You guys are impressive. You guys do know your stuff, and that's a business. You can tell you guys know your stuff. So that's another reason why I've had you guys on here. Let me just shout this out, because I am terrible on saying stuff like this. I've got over 170 people in house. I've got 88 likes. If you're enjoying the content and our wonderful guests, Mike and Orlando here, please hit the thumbs up for us on that. We try to give you good content. These guys have taken some time out of their days to come on here. So again, if you haven't hit the like button, please pop that like button here. I don't want to keep you guys on too long. You got time for one more question?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, we're just grateful to be on. It says a lot to us, Don, that you invited us, because it validates the fact that we are the real deal. Like we mean what we say, and we say what we mean. So,
well, no disrespect. I don't want to, downplay any other channel, but some of the stuff that you guys mentioned too, like the advertisements for Amazon and automation, it's all BS in my book too. There's some great courses out there. I would never do a course, but most of what I see, most of what people try to get me to advertise for is all just BS. I don't buy any of that stuff. The hard work is what's going to get me there. And again, you guys said exactly things that I talk about, which is the perseverance and dedication. And I don't give up. I don't care if I bug somebody by emailing them every single day until I get an answer, whether it's no or yes. That's the whole point to this is, Dom, I don't know if Dom's still on tonight, but Dom, Primetime Treasure Hunter, again, very good friend of the channel. We get people telling us, I'm going to quit. And I did a video the other day, and people are telling me, that's just a clickbait. I'm like, I get that literally statement. In that same video, there was 3 or 4 people that said they were quitting the video before it. So, I mean, far too many people give up before they, double down on what they're doing. We worked, barely had enough food for us. The kids ate and all that stuff. So I've went through the trenches to get here. It's not easy, but I can tell in my heart and my mind, this is what I was meant for. And this is the job that satisfies me mentally and everything else. I get a lot of physical work out of it. I can exercise. I can spend time with my family. Just again, like you guys said, it's not I eat, sleep, and breathe reselling, but I can turn that off. Family time. We do family movie night. We'll go out to the park. We'll do this. We'll do that. We always go on a vacation a couple times a year. We travel for a week or two at a time. I got employees, so I don't have to shut anything down. Luckily, I'm in a spot where that's fine. Let's pivot back to that, because you guys both have kids. I know Orlando does, and I do believe, Mike, you said you did as well too. Can you go in maybe to how this has affected your family, whether it be good or bad, or where you have to sometimes pull back from the business side to dedicate more time and efforts to the family? To where's your separating point, maybe in hours or brain, I guess, your mental state, I guess, maybe at that point?
So this has only been a positive impact on my family. And the reason I say that, when I was an administrator, I was working 16-hour days. I mean, Mike could attest to that. It wasn't, as administrator, I wasn't only, in my office and meeting with students and meeting with parents. I was at all the ball games, all the musical events, all the plays. I mean, it was day in and day out. And there was a point in time where my kids were young and I missed out on a lot. And so I think my boys are to the point that they're probably tired of me at times, because they see me all the time. It's just me and them, but it's been amazing. And luckily I was able to get my business to a place where I don't have to do the 60-hour weeks. Now there are times I do Q4. I mean, I take road trips. My boys do go with their mom, so I do have days in the week where it's just me. And so those days, all I do is work. So when I get my boys back, I just spend quality time with them, and that's what we do. Now, it's been kind of nice because my 15-year-old now he's because of Rich Dad Poor Dad, I decided to give him a certain amount of money for a car, and I said the other half you're gonna have to make. And so whatever way you want to do that, whether you want to do that reselling like your dad, and I can teach you the ropes, I'll help you set up a stock market account. You could dabble in that a little bit, which is kind of crazy, but there's kids in his class that are doing that now. I said, you can figure out what he's also, he's good at editing videos. He's actually edited stuff for me on Instagram, so he can make some money on Fiverr. Whatever way he wants to make money, I'm there to help him. And so what it's allowed me to do, like you said, I can step away and I can spend time with my kids. I've traveled more now than I ever have in my entire life. I've gone to several other states with my kids without having to stress about stuff. I mean, the thing is, I'm not, would it be nice to be in San Diego and live on the shores of La Jolla next to the beach and have a multi-million-dollar mansion? Sure. It'd be incredible. But I choose not to. I choose instead, I live in a condo. I'm in San Diego. And the prices I pay are probably what would have been a nice mortgage in certain parts of the country in a nice property. But here's the thing. I have the time freedom. I have the freedom that if my son has an event, I'm there. I don't have to say, I'm sorry, I can't make it, or I'll catch the video after. I'm there. So right now, I mean, every time I'm with, especially when it comes to both my kids, there's some times when one kid wants more attention than the other, but I'm able to give that attention. I mean, it's been amazing. And so it did take some time. This 10 years in the making. This isn't something that happened overnight, especially with eBay. And so it's been over the last 3 years. And what's been awesome too is been able to incorporate my kids. When Toys R Us was liquidating, my 4-year-old loved it. He had a blast. I mean, we kept going to Toys R Us after Toys R Us. I mean, we have videos, we sourced all these items, and we'll never forget that. And so it's been amazing time. I'm grateful for the time freedom that reselling gave. And I'm just, I hope that I can keep building this. And who knows, I may go back into education in the very near future. Don't know. There's people have been approaching me, but I know that if I do that, I'm still going to be okay, because I'm not going to have to work extra things to make money, because I also have revenue coming in from reselling.
Yeah. And man, for me, my life today looks so remarkably different than it did 3 years ago, or even 2 years ago. So when I started reselling, I was full-time teacher, and my wife was working full-time corporate America. She was actually making more money than I was. And we luckily were pretty much on the same schedule, but we had our first son. And the hard part was he had some medical conditions, and it made it difficult for daycare. So we were driving him almost an hour each direction to be with his grandma throughout the week. and we just weren't with our son very much. And it was hard on my wife and it was hard on me. And the reselling thing really started to take off. And what we realized is, we can make this thing work. We can find a way to bring her home and do the reselling thing. And we actually ended up doing something really crazy. We bought a fifth wheel trailer. And so we basically now live in an RV completely off the grid. We are 100% on solar.
Completely off the grid. Like I text Mike and I don't hear from him for days.
Yeah, like prepper status, even though that's not the goal. But like I became a minimalist, out off the grid, so that we can try to live this life in a manner that nobody else is living, because it fit what we were doing. And so because of reselling, I'm able to work a job that's pretty good, but provide enough extra that now my wife can stay home in one of the most expensive cities in the entire United States.
We're in San Diego, by the way, some are asking.
Yeah. So in one of the most expensive cities, and she's able to stay home and we're able to cover all of our bills. We've gotten so far out of debt. We've used a lot of the principles we've learned in a lot of the books that we've read. And now we've got another kid on the way. And I just look at my life and I look, reselling has become a family thing. My wife helps with a lot of the business. She does a lot of the shipping. She does some of the pictures, and she gets really excited when she finds trends, right? I might be at work and I get a text message and it's like, something's going on with Pokemon cards or something's going on with this. You need to check it out. And next thing you know, I'm looking it up and we're making these moves together. And so it's exciting to see that having a family business has brought our family together. And I would encourage, I know everybody's situation is different. Not everybody's going to go live in a trailer in the wilderness. And, so everybody's got a different story, but I think that reselling can be a powerful tool to bring your family together, whatever that looks like for your family. And, I cannot say how much my life looks different. Most people think that it's crazy. I've never been happier. And I'm so thankful for just this community too, the support we've gotten from so many of the people who listen to our podcast, and the encouragement and checking in and how's the trailer going and making me feel like I'm sane. People saying I want to do the same thing. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. The interesting part is I'll always call my friends. I'm like, hey, you want to hang out on Wednesday? They're like, Orlando, I have a job. I'm like, oh, so part of it is like, Orlando, you don't have a job. I'm like, whoa. Let's get this right. I make as much money as you do, except I can choose when I want to work. And that's been the very valuable piece in all of this is just the time freedom.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. You'd mentioned I missed my kid's first step, first words. I'm never going to get that back. And that was when I was working 70, 80, 90 hours for somebody else, hour from the home, or traveling across the country to cover a region or something for somebody. Freedom. Like, I don't care about $1 million house or a mansion on the beach. I've lived in Flagler Beach in Florida. I lived on the beach, and I'm happy with things that most people wouldn't be. And none of that flash is important to me. The family, the freedom is like literally the best thing this can give you. As you guys have said, I've never been so happy with everything. I don't have to count my pennies to make sure I got enough to pay my groceries at the store and write it all down and all that kind of stuff. It's a total change again, but I put in the hours. I know you guys do too. It's good to see that, family members help as well. My wife works. We all do it all here. I've got friends of my kids that work for us and the whole works. With my oldest son, they don't like listing. They like doing all the other stuff, but they're not big fans on it. I was able to bring my oldest one in by offering him a commission off of everything that he lists that sells. So, now he's like, how much stuff can I get up today? How much of this, and he lists a $100 item. He gets $5 extra. It only takes him a couple moments. I give him easy items. I wished I had like 20 listers some days, because I could run him day in and day out for, I don't know how long, like a long time. This is fun. And again, as they're saying, it's a community as well too. It's in my blood. It's something that I wished I would have found 20 plus years ago, but yep. No one in the right mind, at least in my world, or anybody I ever thought of talking to back then, would have ever thought this was something that could be a job. As I know people tell me, you don't work and all this stuff. I work more than them, and I've done it for longer. At least these days I make more than most everybody I know, because they're still stuck in that job. They don't have a way to, there's only one upper management position here. There's only one promotion there. So they've been in, a lot of the friends I know have been in the same job for 15, 20, 25 years at this point. And there's only so far you can go. But in our world with reselling, you can add another revenue stream. You can figure out a new area. You can find a new niche. You can list a whole bunch more stuff and raise your revenue. At least that's my personal experience, that you get in what you get back what you put into it. Knowledge is power, and knowing more than them and putting more work in than your competitor, you're going to come out ahead. At least, again, that's my experience. And it sounds like from everything we've discussed today that would be your two experiences as well. We're running past the hour. I think we'll probably cut it off here. I do have something still scheduled for this evening with somebody else. Again, you guys have been great. I do respect you guys. You guys are the real deal. If anybody hasn't heard about these guys, Prime Pure Hustle Podcast, Mike on the left. I don't know which left. Mike on my left. I got Orlando on the right here. Subscribe. I've dropped their link through there. It is actually in the description box. As soon as the chat or the show ends, I'll be able to add it down into the comment section as well. We'll get that all in there. Check them out. Subscribe to their channel. If you haven't hit the like button on here as well, please hit the like button. What I usually do too at the end here is I'm going to throw it off to you two and some final thoughts, final words, and we'll hear you from that.
All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for taking the time to check out, our discussion here and listen to the things we have to say. And the thing that I always want people to know is you're capable of doing a lot if you're willing to work a lot, right? And reselling is a lot of work. It's hard work, but the more work you put in, the more you can get out of it. And it's one of the few things that you can see that direct correlation. And so it's not a get rich quick. And all of you, I'm sure, have been reselling for a long time, and you know that. But it's so easy to get consumed by or discouraged by the things you see on social media and other people who are, faking it. But if you're watching podcasts like this, if you're watching shows like this, that means that you understand that this is hard work. And I just appreciate being part of this community, and thank all of you so much for listening.
Yeah, agreed. So, hey, thank you so much, Don, for having us on. Obviously, all of you that are watching know the value that Don brings to everyone, and we're just grateful for the community. Again, this is just an opportunity out of many that you can definitely level up your, living and what you can do. And you got to find what works for you. But the reality is you always got to keep it real. You got to understand what you're working with, what your capital is, what your time is, and you got to focus on what's really important. And so that's what we want to bring through on the podcast. You can always find us on YouTube. Here's a podcast, and we're also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those same username. And give us a listen. First couple episodes are a little bit rough on the podcast, but we get a little bit better later on. Hey, we're here to help. We appreciate the community, and we're just grateful that we had this opportunity to be on the Auction Professor show. And so we always end with make sure to be real, relevant, and
Reselling.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Very, very nice, guys. That was excellent. Great send away for it as well. Again, for those in Patreon, I do have a brand new fresh video. It was just posted before the live show. You will have another one, I think by Saturday morning at the very latest. It is edited. It has to be processed and then uploaded. Live show, Patreon, Sunday. I may try and run it in the morning, but it's going to go. I don't have any appointments. I'm not going to be going to another one until the 26th. So again, that will be on there. I'll hit everybody's question. I got a bunch of emails, a lot of emails on some of the last two videos. I will get to all of those by tomorrow afternoon at the very latest. By noon, I've got to be somewhere at 1. So I'll get to everybody first thing in the morning. If you've got anything else you need for Patreon, send it to me tonight, post it tonight, and I'll be able to get to it first thing tomorrow. So just FYI, I got another video going up. In fact, it's actually uploaded for YouTube here already. One last time, I want to thank Mike and Orlando for coming on. It was an excellent show. Great guys. Subscribe to their channel if you have not. It's down in the description box. It's in there too, and I will add it on. Thank you all for coming on. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please hit that like button, and I thank you, and hopefully you enjoy your evening.
All right. Thanks so much, Don. Appreciate it.